The Wheel of Time's magic system. It's actually one of the most complex hard magic system that the fantasy genre has ever seen. It has many levels to it that are divided into all kinds of different categories and subcategories, as well as a long history of this magic system and how it's influenced the world, politics, and geography within the Wheel of Time. So let's go ahead and jump right into it from the top down. Starting at the very top, we have the true source, or the one power. This entity of infinite energy or power, it kind of exists throughout the pattern in the Wheel of Time. It's what makes reality happen. It's what makes time move. Everything is really rooted in the one power. From there, it's divided into two subcategories, Sayadin and Sayadar. Now, these are actually divided by gender. Sayadin is wieldable by men and Sayadar is wieldable by women. These two sources of magic are very similar, except for a couple key differences. Sayadin, for one, using it is like a battle. Everyone who embraces or uses Sayadin is constantly struggling with the power to not be overwhelmed by it. Meanwhile, Sayadar is much more like guiding a stream in using it. The Aes Sedai or channelers who use Sayadar say they must surrender to the flow to be able to then guide it in some way, which is a very kind of meditative, nice way of going about it. Certainly nicer than wrestling the power on the other end. Now, Sayadin, or the male half, is known for having more raw strength or just brute force, but Sayadar has the advantage here when it comes to dexterity with the power. Women are able to do a lot more finite, fine-tuned things with their magic because they have a lot more control. Meanwhile, the men are better at more blunt weeds, things that are much more straightforward. The power levels that are present within men and women are very similar. On average, the men tend to be a little stronger, but this can be attributed to their kind of more attuned to the blunt force of Sayadin. And while of course women have slightly less overall strength, the dexterity makes up for that gap. Each source has an affinity for one of 5 different elements. You have earth, wind, fire, water, and spirit. The men are more fine-tuned to earth and fire, and the women are more fine-tuned to water and air. Compared to many other fantasy series, Wheel of Time magic users are much stronger. Average magic user in the Age of Legends was pretty much a city buster on the power level scale, and in the current time we are in, while they've been powered down quite a bit, the average channeler or magic user in the Wheel of Time is still worth a small army of soldiers used right. To use their abilities with the magic, channelers bring together those 5 different elements to create all kinds of different weaves. Now, when I say weaves, imagine the channeler bringing together individual strands of each element to form a more complex pattern. Done right, these patterns result in spells, or in this case, different results of their weaving, like gateways or fireballs, or freezing someone in the air. Some channelers are naturally more gifted at certain weaves. It is rare, but it certainly can happen. Now, throughout the history of the Wheel of Time, men and women worked together to accomplish incredible things. The strengths and weaknesses of Sayadin and Sayadar really balancing each other out to let the channelers accomplish magnificent things. All this changed, though, when the Dark One tainted or fouled the male half of the power. Now, men who channel eventually go insane due to the taint from the Dark One. There are so many taint jokes you can make, but I will resist making any of them. Now, as a man goes mad from channeling, he'll start hearing voices or seeing things, becoming incredibly paranoid. This often results in the channeler lashing out and causing extreme damage around them. They will eventually completely slip into madness and almost always die as a result. Women, on the other hand, are not afflicted from this side effect from the Dark One's touch. They have remained respected high figures of authority within society since they are not affected by what the Dark One did to the One Power. Men, on the other hand, who can channel have had to abandon society altogether or be hunted down and killed or stilled by women who can channel. They essentially are too dangerous to live, and stealing them or cutting them off from their ability to channel will eventually drive them to suicide. It's like trying to make a heroin addict go cold turkey times 10. And this brings up an interesting aspect of the One Power. It is highly addictive, and people who use it and are not strictly trained can often kill themselves or burn themselves out from the power by drawing too much of it. The most famous example of this is from Lews Therin Telamon, who after he was driven mad by the taint and killed his own family, he drew in enough of the power to create a massive mountain and blew himself up in the process. Now, in modern society, your average Aes Sedai does not have nearly the same level of power as Lews Therin, they just have a lot more control. The White Tower has largely become fixated on control of the power and walking stringent lines that are already established to have the One Power do specific specific things and never really experimenting too much outside of their comfort zone. This is very understandable since the tainting of the other half has shown them what the one power is capable of when abused or used incorrectly. Now, I'm not going to get into any spoilers here that are specific, but if you want to stop now, there will be some very mild, maybe very predictable spoilers from here on in the video. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to click away. There are other groups who can channel outside of the White Tower. Now, these groups do not practice nearly as stringent control of the one power the Aes Sedai advocate for, and this has caused a lot of tension with the Aes Sedai in those groups because the White Tower and the Aes Sedai who serve it see themselves as the guardians of the power at this point and really want to control or have a voice in how everyone who can touch it behaves. This is highly inappropriate according to some other cultures, but that is a large part of the power dynamic and struggle that goes on within this world. A power struggle that men have been entirely cut out of since they are now hunted and no longer channel openly in good society. In fact, it has been so long since men could channel, the fact that there used to be male Aes Sedai is somewhat largely forgotten in less educated parts of the country. Men who can channel are regarded similarly as we regard demons or ghouls. They're just inherently evil, bad things, something to be afraid of and kill. Looking back at how men and women used to work together to create wonderful things, it's very sad to see the use of the one power in such disarray when the Wheel of Time starts. Male Aes Sedai no longer exist, and now women have almost all positions of power within Randland. Queens are more common than kings, and no open magic user at all is a man, except for false dragons. It is destined in the Wheel of Time that the dragon, or Luz Therin Telamon, will be reborn to fight the Dark One again. This has not happened for thousands of years, but a few signs have shown it may happen soon. Men often proclaim themselves to be this dragon reborn to fight the Dark One out of desperation. They often don't actually really believe it, they just don't want to be hunted and killed. And anyone who proclaims themselves the dragon will amass followers. People want to fight the Dark One, whether out of ignorance or real belief that this is the dragon reborn. But obviously the Wheel of Time focuses on one man who just may not be a false dragon. So that is it. That is the best I could do to explain the Wheel of Time magic system without getting into too many spoilers. It's very complex and harder to understand. The only harder to understand magic system I can think of is the one from Lightbringer, but that's just because it's not explained extremely well early on in the series. But the only things I can really add on here at the end to kind of just shoehorn in some more information, it is easy to abuse the one power in the Wheel of Time, and those who use it can often burn themselves out or harm others. That is why it's very understandable that the White Tower has instituted such rigid laws around it. Essentially, every woman who can channel has to go there in modern society because it's just viewed as dangerous not to. Obviously, those who are not really connected to the wetlands, not big fans of that. I hope you guys had a good time learning about the Wheel of Time magic system. Like and subscribe if you've not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. The tournament will continue tomorrow. I hope you're all having a wonderful winding down to your week. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.